In Numenor, Miriel is presiding over the blessing of the children when a strong wind assaults her. When she looks outside, she sees her island being devoured by waves, but then she wakes up. Outside, her people are dissatisfied upon hearing that the queen has summoned the elf to court even after Halbrand attacked 4 guildsmen. The crowd draws 𝐒𝐴𝐴RION's attention, while the Chancellor Pharazôn's son, 𝐒𝐚𝐬𝐬, tells his father that they have a problem. The crowd agrees they don't like elves, fearing what they might take from them. Just as the crowd chants that the queen is an elf lover, Pharazôn appears, and with his charisma, he calms the crowd, declaring that one elf couldn't threaten Numenor. 𝐒𝐴𝐴RION, who's been observing the crowd, is approached by 𝐒𝐚𝐬𝐬, but she rejects his offer of a drink. Meanwhile, Galadriel meets with the Queen Regent, who's unhappy upon discovering that she's been to her kingdom's Hall of Lore. When Miriel also mentions how her Southlander friend got into a brawl, Galadriel states that Halbrand is actually the lost heir in exile to the throne of the Southlands. She proposes that the Queen Regent back Halbrand so that he can unite his people again and fight against Sauron. When Miriel refuses, Galadriel asks for an audience with the one who holds the true authority, the King of Numenor, but only ends up getting imprisoned. Meanwhile, Isildur intentionally sabotages his duty while training, enraging the sailmaster, who decides to expel him and his 2 friends, Valandil and Ontimo, from his ship. Later, he apologizes to his friends, but Valandil doesn't forgive him, as their lives just got destroyed because of Isildur. Back in the Southlands, the orcs bow when Adar arrives. While Arondir is astonished upon seeing he's actually an elf, Adar approaches a barely alive Magrot, giving him comfort before ending his suffering. When the orcs leave with the corpse, Adar questions Arondir in the elven language where he's from, and when he answers he's from Beleriand, Adar reminisces how he's been there when he was still young. Arondir questions him why the orcs call him father, but he doesn't answer, only saying that there are lies rooted deep in Middle-earth. Adar then instructs him to deliver a message to the men taking refuge in the old watchtower, to which Arondir complies. Meanwhile, in Ostirith, more people arrive from other villages, which makes Bronwyn, Waldreg, and Treadwill worry about rations. When Theo volunteers to get supplies from Waldreg's root cellar, Bronwyn refuses, insisting they should just forage the hills. Later, Theo convinces Rowan to come with him back to Tir Harad, and while they do get supplies, Theo insists that he get more inside the tavern. When the clouds then darken the land, it spooks Rowan, who immediately leaves, while Theo encounters an orc. He draws the sword hilt he found and feeds it with his blood, allowing the hilt to become a sword. With it, he injures the orc and quickly escapes. Immediately after, the orc announces to his allies that he's found what they're looking for and that a boy has it, which Theo hears while hiding in a well. In Eregion, Elrond marvels that elves and dwarves are working together to complete the Forge Tower, while Celebrimbor confides that it seems like Durin is avoiding him or hiding something. Later, when Elrond visits Durin's home, he realizes that Disa is lying about the whereabouts of her husband. When the dwarven couple meets later, Durin is happy that his wife is quick-witted to cover his tracks, but unbeknownst to them, the elves' better senses allow Elrond to make out what they're saying, that Durin is making progress at the old mine below Mirrormere. Later, Elrond finds the mine, but gets discovered by Durin, who makes him swear never to reveal to anyone what he's about to say. He shows Elrond the new ore they have discovered called Mithril, which is far more precious than gold, but forbidden to extract by the king because it's perilous to mine. Durin gives Elrond a piece of Mithril as a token of their friendship, when suddenly, a part of the mine collapses with 4 dwarves trapped inside. At the same time, in Numenor, 𝐒𝐚𝐬𝐬 charms 𝐒𝐴𝐴RION to go on a date with him, while in the dungeons, Halbrand makes Galadriel realize what the queen fears most, just as she remembers that Miriel got angry when she demanded to speak with the king. Pharazôn arrives with some men, declaring that the queen decided that Galadriel is to be shipped back to the elves under armed escort that night. Galadriel resists, pushing the guards into her cell, while Halbrand advises Pharazôn to just let Galadriel do as she pleases, since she's leaving anyway. In the city, 𝐒𝐴𝐴RION finds her brother, who reveals that he got himself and his friends dismissed from the cadets, much to his sister's dismay. Just as they hear that the elf is missing, Galadriel enters the king's tower, but she also finds Míriel inside. The king is too ill to respond to anyone, which the queen regent wishes to be kept secret. Galadriel asks to be told the truth about why Míriel, unlike her father, isn't loyal to elvish ways, and so the queen shows her a palantir, also known as a seeing stone. When Galadriel touches it, she sees waves consuming Numenor, which Míriel claims to be the future, as the vision started with Galadriel's arrival in their city. The queen wants her to leave soon, so she can end the crisis. Galadriel says that if the evil rising in Middle-earth is left unchecked, it may bring Numenor's downfall, but Míriel still refuses to endanger her kingdom. Back in the Southlands, the men in the watchtower only find small birds to eat, not enough for all of them. Just then, Rowan returns with the supplies, and he lies to Bronwyn, saying Theo told him that he'll be right behind him. In the village, Theo still hides in the well while the orcs search for him, but eventually, he emerges. He's about to escape the village when an orc finds him. However, he is then saved by Arondir. The orcs chase after them in the woods, and while Arondir protects Theo, Bronwyn shows up. The three of them rush toward the clearing, where the sun shines brightly, causing the orcs to halt their chase, as they cannot stand the sun's rays. In Moria, Disa sings while Elrond listens, noticing that the mountain is responding. Later, she reveals to the curious Elrond that what she was singing was a plea to the rocks to release the miners, who are still alive in the collapsed mine. She apologizes for lying, but Elrond understands that she was just being faithful to his friend. Just then, Durin arrives announcing that all of the trapped dwarves are alive, but his father has decided to shut the whole vein where Mithril can be mined. Seeing that Durin is deeply frustrated, Elrond tells him about his own father, and he advises Durin to treasure the time he has with the king. With Durin now calm, Disa asks how the two of them met, and while Durin insists that he saved Elrond from mountain trolls, Elrond reveals that it was him who did the saving. Later, Durin apologizes to his father, admitting he was at fault, but the king says there's nothing to forgive. Durin reveals that Elrond invited him to Lindon, and as his intuition says that there's more at play when it comes to Gil-galad, he wants to accept the offer, which the king eventually allows. Meanwhile, back in the Watchtower, Bronwyn thanks Arondir, but he reveals to her that he has a message to deliver. If the men want to live, they're to forsake their lands and swear fealty to Adar. At the same time, Waldreg approaches Theo, saying he knows that he took the sword hilt from his cellar. Waldreg shows him a mark on his arm that Theo shares on his skin after blood-feeding the hilt. Grabbing his arm, Waldreg tells Theo about Sauron in a sinister voice, saying he's about to return. In the trenches, Adar is informed by the orcs that the sword hilt is found, and that it's in the Watchtower. In Armenelos, as Galadriel leaves, Míriel heads to the court to assure her people that the elf is leaving. Suddenly, the leaves of Nimloth, the white tree, fall around her, a sign of the will of the Valar, and she whirls around to look at the elf who's leaving. Having witnessed this divine sign, the queen announces to her people her intent to escort Galadriel back to Middle-earth and aid her fellow men in the Southlands, setting up their quest. Elendil asks for volunteers among the young people of Numenor to protect the queen, which includes Valandil, Antimo, and Isildur. Alongside them, many people in the queen's court also decide to join her in the coming expedition.